Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. All the ladies, cover your heads, and we're going to stand and face Jerusalem.
Return.
Return.
We beseech thee, O God of hosts.
We beseech thee, O God of hosts.
Look down from heaven.
Look down from heaven.
And behold.
And behold.
And visit this vine.
And visit this vine.
In the vineyard.
In the vineyard.
With thy right hand.
With thy right hand.
Hath planted.
Hath planted.
And the branch that thou madest strong.
And the branch thou madest strong.
For thyself.
For thyself.
Yet they tempted and provoked.
Yet they tempted and provoked.
The Most High God.
The Most High God.
And kept not his testimonies.
And kept not his testimonies.
But turned back.
But turned back.
And dealt unfaithfully.
And dealt unfaithfully.
Like their fathers.
Like their fathers.
They were turned aside.
They were turned aside.
Like a deceitful bow.
Like a deceitful bow.
For they provoked him to anger.
For they provoked him to anger.
With their high places.
With their high places.
And moved him to jealousy.
And moved him to jealousy.
With their graven images.
With their graven images.
When God heard this.
When God heard this.
He was wroth.
He was wroth.
And greatly abhorred Israel.
And greatly abhorred Israel.
My sons was taken from 78 and 80. May the Lord add a blessing of the reading, hearing, as well as doing of his word. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Israel's Church of Living God. And Brother Rodney and Brother Caleb will be reading today. We'll be doing a lesson today entitled, The Star of Your God. The Star of Your God. Now, I'm just going to put in a little disclaimer here because we're not here to offend anyone. We're just going to read some things out of the Bible, and we're going to read some things out of history. And we're going to show you about this star of your God, or this star of Remphan. So we got a lot of things to cover, so we're going to get right into the lesson because we got a lot of things to cover. We're going to Genesis first, Genesis 1 and 16. We're going to Genesis 1 and 16. Genesis 1 and 16. Go ahead and read it.
And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
So God is the one who made the sun and the moon. This is greater light, this lesser light, and the stars also. He made them all. Go ahead and read.
And God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth.
See, that's what they were used for. The sun and the moon and the stars. To give light upon the earth. Go ahead and read.
And to rule over the day and over the night. And to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good.
Go ahead.
In the evening and the morning was the fourth day.
So now the Lord is the one who made the moon, the sun and the moon and the stars. And he also made something else. We're going to get into that in a minute. Let's go to Psalms the 83rd chapter. Look at this again. Psalms the 83rd, Psalms the 8th chapter. Psalms the 8th chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse 3. Psalm 8 and 3. When you get it, go ahead and read it.
When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers.
See, this is the work of God's fingers. The work of this heavens that we are under and on. It's the work of God's fingers. Go ahead and read.
Yes, sir. When I consider thy heavens and the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained.
Which thou hast ordained. The moon and the stars thou hast ordained. God ordained these. And we're going to show you that these planets and the stars, and that's all they are gases and stuff in the solar system, along with these planets. But go ahead and read them.
Verse 4. What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou visiteth him? For thou hast made him a little lower than the angels, and hast crowned him with glory and honor.
Go ahead.
Thou made him to have dominion over the works of thy hands.
He made this man to have dominion over the works of his hands, but here on the earth, though, not in the heavens, in the sky, in the solar system. He didn't give man dominion over it. He gave man dominion over the works of his hands on this earth.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and read.
Thou hast put all things under his feet. All sheep and oxen, yea, and the beasts of the field, the fowl of the air, and the fish of the sea, and whatsoever passeth through the paths of the sea.
Now, so the Lord had put all things under man on this earth, and gave man dominion over things on this earth, not in the heavens, not in our solar system as we call it today, the solar system. Let's go, because, you know, Job, he spoke of some of these stars that's in the sky. Job mentioned some of the names of the stars that are in the sky. And we're going all the way back in Job, and they had names for these stars. As though somebody had some type of telescope, and they were looking at these stars, and they started naming them. Now, I can't say nobody had no telescope at this time, but they looked at these stars, and they named these stars. Let's go now. Let's go to Job, the 9th chapter. Back up to Job, the 9th chapter. Because man, although we might think that man is not intelligent, man has been very intelligent. Man has been very intelligent. All the way back during ancient times. Job 9:1. You know, we think that we're the smartest, and we might be somewhat when it comes to technology and stuff like that. We might be. But when it comes to the solar system and stuff and things like that, and the planets, men back during the times of Job, they understood this too. We had Job 9:1. Job 9:1. Go ahead and read it.
Then Job answered and said, I know it is so of a truth, but how should man be just with God? If he will contend with him, he cannot answer him 1 of 1,000.
Skip down the verse, because he said, I know it's so of a truth, but how should man be just with God? Skip down to verse 6. Skip down to verse 6. Go ahead and read.
Which shaketh the earth out of her place.
He shook. Look at what God can do. He shakes the earth out of her place. Go ahead and read.
And the pillars thereof tremble. Which commanded the sun, and it riseth not. And sealeth up the stars.
Now look here. Now he can command the sun, and it won't rise. This is what the God of the God of heaven have done. He just set the sun and the moon and everything out there, and it's just there. Nobody can explain this. Then he tell the sun when to rise and when to shine. And sealing up the stars thereof. So he tell the stars when they can shine too then, don't he?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and read.
Which alone spreadeth out the heavens and treadeth upon the waves of the sea. Which make Arcturus.
Which make Arcturus. Who's Arcturus? This is the stars that I was telling you about earlier. This is the name of a star. Now look here. Job is naming these stars. Go ahead. What else he say?
Which make Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades.
Orion and Pleiades. These are names of stars that Job had a name for them all the way back there during his times. This is how intelligent men were at this time. Finish that.
Yes, sir. Which make Arcturus, Orion, and the Pleiades in the chambers of the south.
And the chambers of the south. Now, we're going to look up the definition, though, for a star, because a star, it ain't nothing but gases. We're going to World Book Dictionary for this. We're going to World Book Dictionary. Because that's all it is a bunch of gases. You know, the stars can't tell you nothing. They don't have no life or none of that. Because, you know, people deal with astrology and all that, talking about the stars and everything, but the stars can't tell you nothing. What is a star?
Star. Any heavenly body that is not a planet, moon, comet, meteor, or nebula. Stars are not luminous, gaseous. No, stars are hot, luminous, gaseous bodies varying in size from those slightly larger than the earth.
So now, that's all it is, illuminated bodies of gases. That's what stars are. They don't have no life. They can't tell you nothing. They don't speak. They don't do none of this. But yet, men say they reading the stars when it comes to astrology. Let's go now. Let's go to 2 Kings, the 23rd chapter. 2 Kings 23. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. 2 Kings 23 and 1. Now you're going to be very shocked and surprised. I mean, because I could go deeper with this. You're going to be very shocked and surprised at some of the things that you're going to learn today when it comes to this star. And more specifically, I'm talking about this 6-point star. You know, men call this the star David. What? David didn't have no star.
Teach.
Not only that, this star was prevalent throughout the world, not just in Israel. Let's go now. We have 2 Kings 23 and 1, 2 Kings 23 and 1. So we want to get that images of the planet ready. Okay, so hold on one second. So now we're going to read this first, and then what I'm going to tell you. We're going to 2 Kings 23 and 1. Go ahead and read that.
And the king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem. And the king went up into the house of the Lord, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him.
Go ahead.
And the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant which was found in the house of the Lord. And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant before the Lord, to walk after the Lord and to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart and all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant that were written in this book.
Now he said he made a covenant with the Lord that they're going to perform the words of the covenant, which were written in the book. Go ahead and read.
And all the people stood to the covenant. And the king commanded Hilkiah, the high priest, and the priests of the second order, and the keepers of the door, to bring forth out of the temple of the Lord all the vessels that were made for Baal.
That were made for Baal. This is a false deity right here, this Baal, but we're not looking at him today. But go ahead and read though.
And for the grove, and for all the hosts of heaven.
And for all the hosts of heaven. What are these hosts of heaven? That's the moon, the sun, the stars, the planets. These are the hosts of heaven. Go ahead and read.
And he burned them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron. And carried the ashes of them into Bethel.
Now, so he buried all these idols in heaven, the Baal and all these idols that were worshipped according to the host of heaven. He took them and burnt them all. Because this was all evil in the sight of God.
Yes.
You know, you worshiping stars and moon and sun and all this. The Lord said, that's an abomination to me. I'm God. So you're going to worship something that I made? They can't tell you nothing, can't save you? Verse 5.
And he put down the idolatrous priests, whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the cities of Judah, and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burn incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets.
And to the sun. Now look at this. Now they burning incense to the sun and the moon and the planets. Now, you know, for what? I mean, what are the sun and the moon and the planet? The sun is for to shine by day, the moon for to shine by night, right? To give light upon the earth. And the planets are just in our solar system for whatever God set them there for. But now we're going to show you some of the planets. You finished that?
No, sir. And to the planets and to all the hosts of heaven.
Now we're going to show you the planets that's in our solar system. Come on, get that ready, Gerald. We're going to show you the planets in our solar system. These are the planets in the solar system. You got Mercury, Earth, Jupiter, Uranus, Venus, Mars, Saturn. Now keep keep an eye on that Saturn right there. All right? Keep an eye on Mars and Jupiter. And then the last one we got is Neptune. But this Earth right here is a planet. This Earth is a planet. And you know, let's go now, because you know, they call some of the planets, okay, Gerald, they call some of the planets after men. So let's go to Acts the 14th chapter, Acts the 14th chapter. But now keep in mind though, we only dealing with planets. That's all we dealing with, planets. Now we're going to Acts the 14th chapter, Acts the 14th chapter. Now look, they had, back then, this is like almost 2,000 years ago, during the time of the apostles, they understood some of the names of these planets. Acts 14 and 11, Acts 14 and 11. Don't worry, it's going to get interesting in a minute. Acts 14 and 11. I'm just laying a little groundwork right now. Acts 14 and 11. Look, they understood some of the names of these planets. Go ahead and read.
And when the people saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in the speech of Laconia, the gods are come down to us in the likeness of men.
Now look, they said the gods are come down to us in the likeness of men. What are they referring to? I'm going to show you. They're referring to stars. They calling these stars gods. Look at what they said. Go ahead and read.
12. And they called Barnabas Jupiter
and they called,
Paul.
oh, slow down, he said, they called Barnabas Jupiter. Well, isn't that one of the planets that we just saw, Jupiter? Now they called it Barnabas after a planet, which is Jupiter, which means they had knowledge and understanding of these names of these planets. Just like Job knew about these stars. Read that verse 12 again.
And they called Barnabas Jupiter and Paul Mercurius.
Then they called Paul Mercurius. We just saw one of the planets Mercury, didn't we? So we see Jupiter and we saw Mercury. And here they called Barnabas Jupiter and they called Paul Mercurius. Go ahead and read.
Because he was the chief speaker.
But remember what he said though, the gods have come down from heaven in the likeness of man. And they called Barnabas Jupiter and Paul Mercurius. Because he was the chief speaker. Now they even understood that Mercury had more power or more strength or was a more, I don't know, authority or whatever they want to say, than the rest of the planets. Because he said they called Paul Mercury because he was a chief speaker. As though they understood, like, Mercury, that's the chief planet right there. See, they got some understanding, don't they? All the way back here during the 1st century. Go ahead and read a little more.
Then the priests of Jupiter, which was before their
Now
city.
look at this. The priests of Jupiter. That's a planet. But they had priests to Jupiter. Go ahead and read.
Then the priests of Jupiter, which was before their city, brought oxen and garlands into the gates, and would have done sacrifice with the people.
Now these are Gentiles doing this now. These are Gentiles. They say they get ready to sacrifice to Paul and Paul and Barnabas. They get ready to make sacrifices to them. Oh, they praising them. Mercurius and Jupiter. They done come down in the likeness of men. Then the priests of Jupiter, which was before their city, brought oxen and garlands unto the gates and would have done sacrifice with the people. Go ahead.
Which when the apostle Barnabas and Paul heard of, they rent their clothes and ran in amongst the people crying out.
You see that? They took off running. They said, don't do this. Why did they let these men praise them and everything? Like, because most men, oh yeah, go ahead, we're going to have a party. You understand? But Paul and Barnabas took off running and said, no, don't do this. And we're going to show, why did they take off running like that? Go ahead and finish that.
Yes, sir. And ran in among the people crying out and saying, sirs, why do ye these things? Why do ye these things?
Go
we
ahead.
also are men of like passions with you.
He said, we are men just like you are. Go ahead and read.
And preaching to you that ye should turn from these vanities unto the living God.
Ooh, you see what Paul called this? These are vanities. You're worshiping planets and stars and the moon and sun. This is vanity. It don't mean nothing. Go ahead.
Which made heaven and earth and the sea.
I'll tell you what, read that verse 15 again.
And saying, sirs, why do ye these things? We also are men of like passions with you, and preaching to you that ye should turn from these vanities unto the living God, which made heaven and earth and the sea, and all things that are therein.
Now, just as well as they understood about these planets, Paul and Barnabas understood that, look, we're not supposed to be worshiping it. Look, y'all not doing no sacrifice to us. And what they do, they took off running. And I'm going to show you why. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 17th chapter. Deuteronomy 17. See, these men feared God. They understood what this meant when they were doing these things. They feared God. Deuteronomy 17 and 2. Deuteronomy 17 and 2. Everybody got it?
Amen.
Go ahead and read that.
If there be found among you within any of thy gates which the Lord thy God giveth thee, man or woman, that have wrought wickedness in the sight of the Lord thy God, in transgressing his covenant,
Go ahead.
and have gone and served other gods.
And have gone, you see, you transgressing when you go and serve other gods.
Make it plain, brother.
Now look at what he's going to say, though, besides these other gods. Go ahead and read.
And have gone to serve other gods and worship them, either the sun or moon,
Either the sun or the moon,
or any of the host of heaven,
or any of the hosts of heaven, go ahead,
which I have not commanded.
which I have not commanded. So God never commanded that it was all right for you to go worship the sun and the moon and the stars. And I know some people going to say when we get to it, we don't worship no stars. But the book also say, abstain from all appearance of evil.
Yes, sir.
Because that's what this star represents. This 6-point star. But keep reading on, because look at what he said about those who worship the sun and the moon and the star. Because you know, people worship these things. They worship these things as gods. Keep reading.
Verse 4. And it be told thee, and thou hast heard of it, and inquired diligently, and behold, it be true, and the thing certain, that such abomination is wrought in Israel.
You see that? This is an abomination to God. Look at what he say do to him if you found doing worshiping these sun and moon and the host of heaven. Go ahead.
Then shalt thou bring forth that man or that woman which have committed that wicked thing unto thy gates, even that man or that woman, and shall stone them with stones till they die.
Ooh, don't just stone them, you stone them till they die.
Yes, sir.
The Lord's serious about this, isn't he? He is very serious about that. Look at what Job said right here. Let's go to Job, the 31st chapter. Job 31. The Lord said, look, if you find a man or a woman worshiping the sun, the moon, the stars, or the host of heaven, put them to death. Stone them to death. And don't just stone them till they die. God's serious, ain't he? This is a serious offense with God. Job 31 and 3. Job 31 and 3. Look at what Job said. Job 31 and 3. Go ahead and read it.
Is not destruction to the wicked, and a strange punishment to the workers of iniquity?
Now he says not destruction to the wicked and a strange punishment to the workers of iniquity. Skip down to verse 26. Skip down to verse 26. Look at what he said. Go ahead.
If I beheld the sun when it shines, or the moon walking in the brightness, and my heart have been secretly enticed.
Stop right there. You see that? He said, look, if I beheld the sun when it shine, or the moon walking in brightness, and my heart have been secretly enticed by the sun or the moon, and it's been enticed by it. You understand how people think about, ooh, the sun and the moon, I'm going to pray to it. I'm going to do some astrology. I'm going to see what the stars are saying. He said, if I be enticed by this, Go ahead and read.
Or my mouth hath kissed my hand.
Or my mouth have kissed my hand. Go ahead.
This also were an iniquity to be punished by the judge.
Ooh, you see that? He said this is iniquity and it's to be punished by the judge. Who is the judge? That's the Lord, ain't it?
Amen.
This also were iniquity to be punished by the judge. Go ahead.
For I should have denied the God that is above.
Ooh, he said I should have denied God that is above. Because you calling these planets and the moon and the sun and you worshiping them, you calling them God, then what about the God that made them then? You denying them, aren't you?
It's written.
Now Job, he put it quite plain here, didn't he? If you worshiping these things, you denying the God of Israel, the God of heaven and earth. You denying him. And this is punishable. This is punishable. Let's go now. Let's go to, we're going to look up the definition of planets right here. So we're going to Funk and Wagner's book, World Book Encyclopedia. We're going to World Book Encyclopedia. Y'all just bear with me for a minute. I got all my books mixed up here. So we're going to World Book Encyclopedia, and we're going to go to page, page 45. And we're going to look up planets real quick. Y'all just bear with me. Hang with your brother for a little bit. Just, what is a planet?
Yeah, Funk and Wagner's World Book Encyclopedia, excuse me, volume 15. Planet says, is any of the 9 largest objects that travel around the sun.
See, that's what planets do. That's all they do. You understand? They travel around just like this planet right here travels around the sun. Just like we just saw all the planets, right? That's all they're doing, traveling around the sun. Go ahead and read.
The Earth is the planet that travels around the sun once a year. Going outward from the sun, the planets are Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. The sun, the planets and their satellites,
the moon,
the sun, the planets,
because see, each planet it's got satellites, which is the moon, which are moons.
Right.
Some of them have several moons on them. But we know the Earth has got one moon, right? Got one sun and one moon. You finished that?
No. It says the sun, the planets and their satellites, in parentheses, moons, and smaller objects called asteroids, meteoroids, and comets make up the solar system.
Now, so that's what we call our solar system. Now we're going to look up Mars, because he mentioned Mars right there too, didn't you? Mars.
This is Funk and Wagner's Encyclopedia, volume 16, page 45. Mars. In Roman mythology.
Now listen now. In Roman mythology, because remember, Job said, look, if I'm worshiping the sun and the moon and everything, then I'm denying God, and that's punishable, isn't it? But look now, in Roman mythology, go ahead, listen to the planet Mars.
God of war.
Oh, that's what the planet Mars is in Roman mythology, the God of war. God of war. Everybody paying attention?
Amen.
Go ahead.
Mars in Roman mythology, god of war, the son of Jupiter, king of the gods.
The son of Jupiter. I mean, this is almost laughable. I see you over there about to laugh. This is laughable, ain't it? That men would believe that these planets are gods. And then name them. Jupiter and Mars, and they got a name for Mars and Saturn, and they got names for these gods too. Go ahead and read.
Yes, sir. Mars in Roman mythology, god of war, the son of Jupiter, king of gods, and of his wife Juno. One of the most important Roman deities.
One of the most important Roman deities. That is really something, ain't it? Go ahead.
Mars was regarded as the father of the Roman people.
The father of the Roman people. Mars. When it's nothing but a planet. Go ahead.
Because he was the father of the Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome.
Oh, wait a minute. The Romulus, which was Mars' son, he was the founder of Rome. Now, can you imagine this? People actually believing this back in those days? They actually believed this. You finished?
The legendary founder of Rome, originally a god of the year.
A god of the year. They call him Mars a god. Well, they are denying the true and living God. And the Lord said, look, if you worship the sun, the stars, the moon, he said, put them to death, didn't he? So if they had been among the children of Israel, they would have been put to death, wouldn't they have? Let's go now. Let's go to Amos, the 5th chapter. Amos, the 5th chapter. Are we okay? We good. Amos 5 and 26. Amos 5 and 26. Amos, now this is almost unbelievable. But people actually believe these things. Amos 5, and we're going to pick up the 26. But you know, this is the Gentile. But not that they are the only ones, though, because I'm going to show you, most of your world believed in these stars and these planets as being gods. How do you think we got March? That's how we got March, the month of March. That's how we got Saturday, the day called Saturday, from the planet called Saturn. We're gonna deal with Saturn a little bit. We're gonna get into Saturn because that's where those symbols and stuff start coming in of these gods and these stars and stuff. But hold on one second. Amos the 5th chapter, verse 25. Amos 5 and 25. Like I said, I'm not here to offend nobody. We're just reading you what's written in the Bible and history. Amos 5 and 25, go ahead.
Have ye offered unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years? O house of Israel? But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch.
He said, you have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch.
And Chiel. Your images. The stars of your God.
The stars of your God. See, men were worshiping stars as God, and Israel was following along with it. See, this is not nothing new. Astrology and all that's not nothing new. Like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. The same thing men were doing then, they're doing the same thing now. I'm going to show you. He said, but ye have borne the tabernacle of Molech and Cheam, your images, and the star of your God, go ahead.
Which ye made to yourselves.
Which you made to they made these images. But these are the stars of your God, Molech and Cheam. Now, let's go now, because we're going to give them another, because that Molech and Cheam, they got another name. Let's go to 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. 2 Kings 17. 2 Kings 17, and we're going to pick it up. We're going to read one verse, verse 30. 2 Kings 17 and 30. We're going to read one verse. Just hold on to your seats. It's going to get interesting in a minute. 2 Kings 17 and 30. Go ahead and read that.
And the men of Babylon made Succothanoth. Made Succothanoth. The men of Cuth made Nergal.
Now they're making these gods now. So the men of Babylon, they made Succothanoth. And the men of Cuth made Nergal. Go ahead.
And the men of Hamath made Ishma.
And the men of Hamath made Ashima. Now let's find out first. Let's go back. We're going to look up Saturn first. We're going to look up Saturn first. And for that, we're going to World Book Encyclopedia. World Book Encyclopedia, and we're going to look up Saturn. I'm about to find it. Okay. We're going to look up Saturn. Just follow along for a minute. We're looking up Saturn now.
It's World Book Encyclopedia, volume 17. Page 128, Saturn was an early god in Roman mythology.
Stop right there. Saturn was an early god in Roman mythology, along with Mars too, wasn't it? But they weren't the only ones. They weren't the only ones. Go ahead and read.
The ancient Romans probably considered him the god of fertility and planting.
We're talking about a planet here. Go ahead.
Yes, but few myths about him remain.
Uh-huh.
His name is probably Etruscan in origin. At first, Saturn had a separate identity. Later, the Romans identified him with the Greek god Kronos.
Kronos. Go ahead.
Saturn's wife was Ops.
But Saturn, look, Saturn even had a wife. But if you look at the planets, the only thing you're going to see on Saturn, you're going to see a big ball of gases and a ring going around it, which are nothing but ice and rocks and stuff like that. But God got it where these ice and rocks are steady going around this ball of gases. Or this planet, rather, I should say. Now, it's going to get a little deep. So everybody just hold on to your seats, okay? It's going to get a little deep. Did you finish that?
Saturn's wife was Ops, the goddess of fertility and the harvest.
So now, they calling this Saturn, they calling it after God, Kronos, and then he had a wife. I mean, it's always laughable. It's laughable. But people actually worship this, and not only that, the children of Israel followed after this too. Let's go now. We're going to look up, because we saw Succoth Benoth, didn't we? So now let's look up Succoth Benoth. What does that say?
This,
Urban's
Urban's Bible Dictionary. It says Succoth Benoth. Possibly one or two, in parentheses, of the non-Israelite deities.
Of the non-Israelite deities.
Brought into the religion of the Samaritans by the Babylonians, resettled at Samaria by King Sargon II of, so the second,
Don't worry about that. Just read right here. Yeah.
okay. It says, component of the name include Succoth, a Babylonian deity identified with Saturn.
Identified with who?
Saturn.
Saturn. Succoth Benoth is identified with Saturn. Go ahead.
Then it says, the Benoth component has been suggested as a reference to Sarpana.
Let me just go ahead and read it over again. Okay. All right, it says Succoth Benoth. You know, we just read that in 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, verse 30, right? And it says, possibly one or two of the non-Israelite deities brought into the religion of Samaritans by the Babylonians, resettled at Samaria by King Sargon II of Assyria. Suggested identifications of the Succoth component of the name include Succoth, a Babylonian deity identified with Saturn, and Amos 5:26, which is what we just got through reading, didn't we? He said, you bear Moloch and Cheon, the stars of your God, right? So we're dealing with this same one, which is called, he's still called Succoth Benoth, right? And he said the Benoth component has been suggested as a reference of Serpentino, whatever that means. But we still got the same God, Sino, because now we want to show you some images. Now, wait a minute now. Before we show these images, we're not trying to offend nobody. We're just showing you the images of this Moloch and this Succoth Benoth. So now let's show those images. You got the 6-point, look at this right here, this bull head right here. Right? Got his hands up with the horns. And then we got the CNI, which is on our dollar. We're going to deal with that a little bit later. Right? Now, look at this Now here go the Mason sign right here. Right? Look at all these symbols that the Moloch and Manoch images have. So everybody get a good look at that. Now, we go on to the video. Steve, right there. Come back. Yeah. Now we go on to the video. Okay, go ahead. These are stars that's in all different countries. There go that Mason sign again, ain't it? Here it is again. This is Hinduism. Look at all these, this 6-point star. So it's not just the Star of David then, is it? Look at the Hindus got it too. We're going to show you who else got it. It's not just the Star of David then, is it? Buddhism. It's also in Islam. This is the star of Moloch and Sakar, that all nations pretty much have this star, not just the Edomites. It is also called the Seal of Solomon, and we're going to read you too about this Seal of Solomon in a minute. It's also called the Seal of David too. God with prayer. The star of your God, Moloch. It included child sacrifices. You see that? Look how evil this is. It is related to the worship of what? Saturn. Raphael right there. It's used for magic and witchcraft and sorcery and alchemy. Look at all this wickedness that this star is associated with. Now look, he said it goes all the way back to Illuminati. Okay. All right. So I hope nobody gets offended by this. But look, the Star of David just not the Star of David, then is it? Which David didn't have no star. We're gonna get into that in a minute. But you see, all these different nations had this same star, and it was associated with wickedness or evil or Satan. Now, let's go now, because we're going to get back to this Bible. But first of all, we're going to read something about the seal of Solomon, because we read that, didn't we? That this star is also called the seal of Solomon. We're going to read this. Right here. This is the seal of Solomon. Now, look at what they attribute this seal, this so-called seal of Solomon to. Go ahead and read that.
Seal of Solomon.
Now, it's got a 6-point star right there, but we already saw it earlier, didn't we? Called this 6-point star called the seal of Solomon. It's also called Magen David, or Shield of David. Which David, we're going to see, he had some shields, but they didn't have no star on them. And then we're going to see who he called his shield, his real shield. Go ahead and read. See the seal of Solomon. Go ahead.
All right. The seal of Solomon. In parentheses, they got or ring of Solomon. It says, is the signet ring attributed to King Solomon in medieval Jewish tradition.
In medieval Jewish tradition, Solomon didn't live during medieval times. So this is something that they made up. Go ahead and read.
Later also in Islamic
Wait a minute, in Islam too? They took on this Solomon seal too, or ring of Solomon idea? The Edomite Jews and Islam, because we saw that Islam as well as the Edomite Jews had that star, didn't we? The Buddhists had it. We're going to show you, the Hindus had it. We're going to show you who else got it too. Go ahead and read though.
Yes, sir. It says, later also in Islamic Western occultism.
Western occultism? Who's in the West? We are, aren't we? Go ahead.
It was often depicted in either a pentagram